Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? You know, the internet is a dangerous place. I found this out recently. I've been, rolling through a bunch of Runeslingers videos, and I figured, what the hell? I'll go check out this Ubiquity game system he talks about, and he's got a series on that. I'll link to his like little playlist on that, and checked out the games and the mechanic and all that sort of stuff that he was talking about. And it was one of those things where I realized I was going to have to spend some money at the end of the day. I'm very tough on mechanics and systems, and this one actually passed pretty well. I was like, man, that's really compelling. So this video isn't necessarily about that. I just figured I'd put that out there. Um, I kind of tore the mechanic apart a little bit, looked at the rate of success, and you'll have to watch his videos to get the idea. But it's not rocket science. Um, it's a binary mechanic. It looks for a certain number of successes. Whatever the difficulty of something is, if it wants 5 successes. You know, um, and it's a die pool, and the dice are binary, pass fail. So if you roll 10 dice, the average, you can come up with an average of 5 successes, um, which is one of the other ways you can resolve tasks where it's not like really a tense moment, or it wouldn't be that theatrical. You can say, okay, well, the average, result of this is 5, so okay, you pass. The interesting thing about the mechanic is that in general, the average roll, um, you get, so let's say your average, say you're rolling 8 dice, the average result will be 4. You're going to get 463, about 63.6% of the time. So it hovers around there, a little bit over 60, a little bit under 60, as you get more and more dice involved. After that, after you that average, it just plummets your ability to actually make a roll. So it's a pretty interesting mechanic, but very cool. And there's all different ways to get more dice or less dice, and etc. All that. But really cool system. So I wish I hadn't watched those videos, because now you have to buy some of those games and use it. And I don't know, what the hell is this video really going to be about? There's a whole bunch of topics I could talk about. One of the things I've been thinking about, though, as I'm scrolling through this things that I was thinking about talking about, is any kind of game modification. Because I was talking to Samwise7 RPG, Tim, and it's funny talking to him, talking to Francois, and talking to Anthony. It really has challenged my thinking in a lot of areas. Or maybe just take a look at some of my base assumptions, what I'm doing with gaming, that sort of thing. I don't plan to abandon old school like games, but just branching out a little bit more and trying some different stuff. But one of the things I was talking to Tim about was, like, he would ask me, "What's your channel about?" I'm like, "Well, geez, I really don't know." But he kind of said, "Well, you do talk a lot about tinkering and messing around with rules and everything." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess so." That sort of stuff kind of fascinates me. Um, but I was thinking about just bolting on resolution mechanics. Both hard on onto the game, just they're bolted on, or just doing them on the fly. Because I was talking to Tim, and I said my approach has changed a lot in the past few several years since I started the channel, I suppose. Whereas before, I really wanted to tear apart systems and make some kind of Franken monster. And now, when I look at a system, for the most part, I like to use it as is, and maybe make one or two changes. Like if something just doesn't, I don't like it as much, and I'll pick on one of my favorite games. So I'll pick on Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Great game, lots of great innovations. I'd rather use something like Swords and Wizardry saves, or the saves from the Delta OD&D saves, or the what do you call it, the Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerer saves, where it's just a single save number, and maybe it's harder or easier based on what you're saving against, and maybe it's harder or easier based on your class. But just you're this level, okay, your save is 15, that sort of thing. Um, and maybe put fireballs back in or something. Some little different changes. But for the most part, I like to use a system. Now, and I'm more into using systems as is. And I was thinking, like, how much do can you change a game and still have it really be the game? I think quite a bit, in my personal opinion. A system like Ubiquity seems to be so self-contained that I'd hesitate to tinker with it. I like to apply it to different genres and the games that are available for it right now. Um, but when you bolt on a mechanic, or use it on the fly, let's talk about really simple, like games like Swords and Wizardry and Lamentations of the Flame Princess, basic fantasy role-playing games, stuff like that. Are those house rules? Are you really changing the game? What is it? It's for me, that's kind of a fuzzy gray area. One of my personal favorites these days, in terms of any kind of mechanics changes, is to have a whole bunch of resolution mechanics in a toolbox. I don't think this is unfair. In other words, when we come to a situation where, okay, the character, a person has said they want to do something, or a situation happens, well, what mechanic do I use? Do I try something like this FU mechanic, foo mechanic, uh, where you roll a d6 and 1 to 3 is failure, but rolling a 1 is you fail and something really bad happens. A 2 is you just fail. A 3 is you fail, but you get some kind of fortunate thing that happens. A 4 is okay, you succeed. However, something unfortunate happens. A 4 is just, or 5 rather, is plain old success, and a 6 is yeah, you succeed and something great happens too. This little degree of success. Or do I want to use something like a 2d6 mechanic? Do I want to use that dungeon world mechanic? Where you have to get a strong hit and a weak hit. All that sort of stuff. Do I want to roll a separate, d6 like I was talking about when say you have to roll under an ability score, but I want to roll a d6 to see how badly you passed or failed? Is this really messing with the rule set? Or is this just kind of throwing on a little extra flavor, a little extra resolution mechanic? I don't think, mixing up a little bit is really unfair, especially, and I'm talking about a system like those old, D&D ones based on something like OD&D or BX, where the game is essentially, it's incomplete. It's guilty. Just as Tetsubo 57 said years ago, and I made my first rebuttal video, the games are incomplete. You have to patch up the holes every once in a while. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with having a large toolbox and just pulling out a mechanic and say, okay, I use this, roll these dice. What do you think?